Hi, for the past couple of days I've been playing around with this Cobalt 8 from Modal Electronics. I've been making one of my ClubbingTV shows. They're called From the Studio and you can catch them on the ClubbingTV official YouTube channel on their From the Studio playlist if you're interested. And that's why I'm sitting here with this background behind me. It's my kitchen and it really annoys the family that I commandeer it to do these shows. So while everything's set up, I thought I'd give a little demonstration of this. So here follows some sort of synth porn I made over the weekend using this and just a drum loop. So I think there's 3 parts from this, 3 presets and a bass. So you get 4 parts in all from this. And it's just something that took about 20 minutes to half an hour to put together. And it's a really nice way of showing how good the presets are in this. So yeah, as I said, they're just some presets. I may have tweaked them a tiny bit, I can't remember now. I sort of spent the whole weekend just messing around with it. But the first thing you notice when you get this out of the box is quite how hefty it is. It's all metal, it's got this aluminium front and this lovely sort of powder coated finish. And I really quite like this sort of matte metallic. Can you have matte metallic? I don't know. And one thing I absolutely love about this is that it's got full-size keys. I'm not a hater of mini keys in any way, but I've just been looking at the Jupiter XM last week and that's exactly the same size, I think, width-wise, but it's got the mini keys, and this just shows you can get really high-quality, nice key beds on something that's pretty compact. So I hope other manufacturers take this on board and we see more large keys on small keyboards, because it is doable. And I bought the Korg Odyssey over the Behringer Odyssey because it fitted in my rack, but it was so much nicer to play the Behringer just because it had wide keys or full-size keys, and the Korg was only about 5 or 6, maybe 8 millimeters thinner, but had the mini keys. And another nice touch is that it comes with an editor, so you can scroll through all those hundreds of presets and see exactly what they're doing. There's nothing like an editor to actually work out what's going on, and the sound, that you really like the sound, but it's not quite doing what you want it to do, and you can't work out which LFO is modulating something. And they're really, really useful for sequences and changing your animation parts and stuff like that. And it comes for Mac, for PC, for Android and for iOS, so that's really nice. It's not actually ready yet for the Cobalt. This one's a beta version, so I suspect it will be released imminently. It's got a really knobby surface, as you can see. It's got lots of knobs on the front, and each of those knobs, or most of the knobs, have a second function. If we press shift, what we've got in light blue underneath these comes into play. So got tune oscillator 1, fine tune of oscillator 1, for example. And as I say, if you just click on it, it's latched, so you don't have to hold it and try and do some sort of finger gymnastics. So if we go to an initial patch, for example, and now detuning oscillator 1, press shift. That's the second function of this knob here. And it's got access to really handy functions like initializing the patch, randomizing the patch, chord memory, mono, poly, unison and stack modes. And if we come over to the left here, we've got the arpeggiator and sequence of functions there. And we can see there you've got anim 1, anim 2, anim 3 and anim 4. And they're 4 lanes of animation, so you can tweak 4 different parameters and record that over your sequence. Anyway, it's really nice, and it's very, very similar to the Argon 8. If you've seen any demonstrations of that, you'll know it looks pretty identical, doesn't it? Except for the colour, obviously. And that's because I think it's probably based on the same electronics underneath. So it's got some similar functions. If you've seen any Argon 8 videos, I'll probably cover a little bit of that ground too, because I'm sure they've not changed the way the ARP and the sequencer works. But the main difference is the oscillators and the filter, and it's called extended virtual analog, and that's because it's not your standard virtual analog. You don't just start off with these sort of standard analog waveforms that you get on an analog synth. They've taken those waveforms and they've done clever things with them. So they've got ring mod, they've got sync, they've got wave shaping, all sorts of clever little ideas, so what they call 34 different algorithms. And what they are essentially are things that you'd do if you had 2 or 3 or maybe 4 oscillators even, and you had the ring mod and you had sync and this, that and the other, and you put it all together and you end up with a starting point that you just use 3 knobs to dial in rather than having to dial in all these different tones. So I think probably better off to start with the oscillators, so then you understand why it's not your standard virtual analog. So starting off with an initial patch, really easy to initialize. Just press this button here, patch initialized. If we go to oscillator 1, we can see we've got sine wave. That morphs to a triangle. And then to a sawtooth. Then to a square. And then to your different pulse widths. And that's where your sort of standard virtual analog leaves it. But this takes it a hell of a lot further. If we go to this parameter here, we've got different set of options, and on algorithm 1, which is what we're using now, it detunes them. I say them, it's a single oscillator if you think about it, but it's obviously got the result of more than one oscillator once you start dialing this in. Nice bit of thick, rich detune. And then when you get to value 65, I think it is, halfway through, you start getting actual intervals. So there's subs, or lower than the original pitch at least. And that's a single oscillator, but you're hearing more than one. I'm moving to the second algorithm. We picked the algorithm with this, and then we've got 2 parameters that we can adjust. So moving to algorithm 2, it says virtual analog crushed. So again, it's just changing the wave shapes like the first one did. But let's get it back to a saw. And you can see there's a bit of bit crushing going on. So that's all quite nice. Let's move to another one. I'm not going to go through them all. I'm just going to get a flavour of them. So this one's called spread saw. So you can see there we're getting different waveforms, sort of wave shaping. And then we detune it again with the second parameter. It's turning more into a super saw, isn't it? But spread in stereo. Again, you've got more than 2 oscillators sounding at the same time. Okay, let's find something a bit more complex. A sync saw. So again, a 2 oscillator sound. Is that 3 oscillators, a sub, a main one, and then the one that's synced? All from the single, and some weird fractal. And these are the sort of wave shaping things I was getting from the endorphins for the generator, and that's, is it £600 or thereabouts? I'm not saying it's the same sort of thing, but we're getting those sort of tones with 2 knobs rather than with a single module and all sorts of goodness going on. This one looks like Batman. But it's a ring mod, and we've got coarse tuning, so you get all those sweet spots that you've got to tune up normally. That are really easy to dial in, but you can detune it as well. Some really cool things going on with the screen as well. Let's try another ring mod. And And then maybe some wave folding as well. And that's why it's extended virtual analog, because it's taken the sort of principles that you'd have with 2 or 3 different oscillators and thrown them through a ring modulator or a sync circuit and getting the result out. So we've got, that's oscillator 1, oscillator 2 is identical and you can blend between them. So let's just go back to a simple sawtooth, shall we? Detune that. And then bring in oscillator 2. Then blend them. Maybe detune oscillator 2 a bit more. I don't know how many oscillators we've got there, but it's definitely more than 2. And while we've got a couple of oscillators playing, something a bit stacked, let's add a bit of drift. So it goes quite drifty, quite out of tune. And then maybe add some width to that. So spreading them between the left and the right. I think that just about covers the oscillators really. So let's move over to the filter, and the filter is a ladder filter with a few options on it. Let's take a look at them. Starting off with a sawtooth. And that's our resonant low pass filter. And if you go really carefully, you can hear it stepping from point to point. This takes us to the different settings: cut off, resonance, morph, which morphs between various modes. And then we've got different types of filter. That's the resonant low pass. Let's put a chord on it, something a bit richer. So. Now let's do a bit of morphing, shall we? See what that does. Turn the resonance down a little. So that turns it into a band pass. And if we continue morphing, that's about halfway through the cycle. It turns into a 1-pole band pass, so that's a 6 dB. And the difference in sound is 1-pole, 4-pole. Let's add some more resonance again. And you hear, as with any ladder filter, you're losing a lot of bass when you bring that resonance up. So to reduce the effects of bringing the resonance up, they've got a balanced filter as well. And just one of the quick access things is to press patch and the cutoff, and you brings it to your type of filter. So this is the resonant low pass filter. And then this should be the balanced. So there's a definite difference there. It's not as resonant and you haven't lost as much bass. So I'll go resonant to balanced. So big difference in the 2 filter types. And then they've got a high pass as well. This is a balanced high pass, it says. Which I'm assuming means that it doesn't go really resonant. Because I'm not sure the point of sort of not losing the bass on a high pass filter. And the morphing on this takes us to a notch, and I do like a notch. And the resonance on this widens the notch. It's really nice, that. And that morphs through again to another high pass. Again, one pole. So you're still retaining a bit more bass. One pole, four pole. That's a nice touch. And then we move over to the next, which is the balanced phase. And this is great, this one. We get a W. And as a man who likes a notch, I very much like a double notch. So a really interesting filter there. There's lots of things you can do with that. It hasn't got every mode you can imagine. It's not simulating all sorts of different synths, but it's a nice sounding quality filter. It's a shame you can hear some stepping. As I turn the knob, I'm watching the graphic sort of step, and I'm not sure if it's my head thinking it's stepping or not. I'll have to close my eyes and do it. I've just double checked the filter to see if it's the actual filter stepping or if it's the resolution of the knob, and it's the resolution of the knob, because if I put on an LFO, so let me put LFO1 sine mode to the depth of the cutoff. Yeah, so it is the resolution of the knob, but it was confusing me because the resolution of the knob seems to correlate with the screen, the resolution of the screen. So as the knob moves to the next value, so does the screen. So you can't work out if it was the screen that was putting me off or if it was actually the knob, and it's the knob. So. That is lovely and smooth, so all is forgiven except for the resolution of the knob. Okay, let's move over to the envelopes then. We've got filter, amplitude and modulation, and the modulation envelope has 55 destinations. 18 of those are the effects and the other are all various synth parameters. So that's quite flexible. And a nice little touch here is if we hold either the filter or the amp envelope down, when we tweak one of the knobs, we're actually affecting all the envelopes. So it's a really quick way of just making something snappy or something long when you're playing around with it. And then now we're in the menu, we can take a look at all the different options. We've got decay, sustain, obviously release, and then we've got envelope type. We've got exponential, snappy, soft, linear, exponential long, snappy long, soft long, and linear long. And I've done a little test with these just sort of by ear, and they sound very, very similar. There's really subtle differences in them. I was going to demonstrate sort of the different shapes and stuff, but actually it's so subtle, it's just really, really boring to watch. I have recorded me just tweaking each of these. I'll just show you quickly, shall I? So just putting a little bit of attack and decay on the filter envelope and then just turning the resonance up high. Hear a bit of stepping there, which I wasn't expecting. Maybe all isn't forgiven after all. Let's go to the envelope type. So this is linear long. Then let's try exponential. And then snappy, see if that's any quicker. Oh, it came down quicker, didn't it? But you see what I mean? There's not like a huge difference in them. It's not like the snappy was instantly lots faster and the exponential was really long. And that's just because it's changing the slope of the attack rather than the actual speed of the attack on most of them. So not really worth digging into too much there, but it is there and it is quite handy. And the envelopes are identical. They're all standard ADSR. We've got 3 LFOs two sets of buttons, but this one's LFO2 and LFO3. We've got three separate envelopes: filter, amplitude and modulation. Modulation's quite good on this. You've got 55 destinations, 18 of those are things for the effects. We've got 3 effects, and each of those has up to 6 different parameters you can tweak. So, and they're really quite good, really good quality effects actually. And then we've got in the sort of modulation section, it's quite flexible. You've got 4 that are fixed: velocity, aftertouch, note, and expression. And then you've got 8 others that you can assign. I think it's the 3 LFOs, the modulation envelope, and a few other parameters, to 55, as I say, different destinations. And of course, you've got the little joystick, and you can assign all sorts of things to that as well. LFO1 is on these 2 knobs, LFO2 and 3 are on these 2, and you access 3 using the shift key. And as you saw when I assigned the cutoff to LFO1, it's really easy to do. Just press the key, hold, we go into assign mode. So let's assign the tuning of oscillator 1, which is a secondary function of the knob. So we need to press shift, twist this, oscillator 1 pitch is on, and we take a sign off, because if you don't take a sign off, the next thing you twist is then assigned to LFO1, which I've done quite a few times. So it's quite fast, it's not super fast, and it's syncable. If we take the rate down to 0, and then below 0 we get all the rates down from 4 bars down to a 64th. So that's a 16th, and change the tempo with this knob on the far right. That's 295 BPM down to 40 BPM. We've got a few shapes on the LFO, so we press shift and we access the secondary function of this knob, which is the shape. We've got sine, triangle, square, sawtooth and ramp, or ramp and sawtooth. I never know which is which. And then we've got random, and then we've got random with a slew, I suppose. It sort of slides between the different positions, as opposed to pure random. Gotta love a bit of 70s computer sounds, haven't you? Okay, and then we've got the mode here, and the mode can be either re-trigger. It always starts at the same place. And in free mode, it can start anywhere on the slope. And what you don't have is something like you have on the Prophet 6, whereby every voice has got its own LFO. So as you press 6 keys and 6 different times, you get 6 different phases of the LFO. In this, they're all the same, which is a bit like you get on the 106. Let's move over now to the arpeggiator and the sequencer. So on the arpeggiator, really simple. Let's just come out of shift. If we go into the menu, so we've got various options on this, on the direction of travel, as it were. Forward 1 octave, backward 1 octave, pendulum, that's back and forth, and shuffle and random, and N forward and N back. N forward plays it in the note order from the lowest to the highest, and normal forward plays it the way you play it. So if I play the highest key first, then the lowest, it's playing in the order I played them, so etc, etc, whereas N forward is... So just just in case you were wondering, which I was, what the difference between N forward and forward is. So let's move over to the sequencer now, shall we? Let's go into play. And it's playing the sequencer. We've got nothing in the sequencer at the minute. So let's record something. Let's record. And we can record in real time or step time, but let's do something in real time. Doesn't sound like that's being quantized, does it? So let's go to quantize. And quantize isn't in the sequencer menu, it's in the settings sequencer menu, which is slightly confusing. And there we go, quantize, let's put it on to the 16th, play again. But it's a nice touch that you can have it unquantized. And you can record on top of that, or you can play on top of it and do what you want with it. Let's just scroll through a few of these. So play and record, real-time mode or step mode, length, and have up to 8 bars. We've got 512 notes in this we can record. So step length and number of steps they're crossed out, obviously because I'm playing real time. Then you can mute notes, you can clear the notes, and then you've got all the animation lanes as well, the 4 animation lanes, looking at different parameters and if they're on or off. And some really handy little things to know as well. On the main panel, just pressing mute clears the sequence, so you don't have to keep on going in and clear it. There's 100 sequences in the memory, and you can save your own, and you can use the sequences on different patches, which is really nice actually, so you don't have to reprogram your sequence for every patch you use, which over to the effects now. We've got 3 effect slots, 1, 2 and 3. Here's the effects level, and then you've got up to 6 parameters you can change on them using these 3 knobs here. So 1, 2, 3, press shift, 4, 5, 6. So let's take a look at these, shall we? Let's go into effects 1. So currently we've got nothing in effects 1, 2 or 3. So let's put something in. What have we got? So we've got a chorus, phaser, flanger, tremolo, lo-fi, rotary, stereo delay, ping pong delay, crossover delay, and a reverb. We start off with a stereo delay. So up here we've got the level, dry wet mix, time, feedback, press shift. We've got low pass filter, high pass filter, and F is empty. So we've only got 5 parameters we can adjust on this. Which are the 5 parameters you'd expect to get on a delay? So let's have a listen. That's all very nice, isn't it? Let's try this lo-fi one, because that's quite interesting. Let's go back into, or should we leave that one on? Let's just take the high pass off a bit. And reduce the feedback a little. Okay, let's go to FX2. And let's put the lo-fi on. And this does some bit reduction and bit crushing. So, effect level. And what I didn't do there was press OK to select the effect. Let's try it again. You've got to press it. Once it's underlined, it's then active. Back here, effect level. Redux amount. Then some bit crushing. And here we've got the bit crusher mount. Some noise. And again, slot F is empty on this one. Let's go and put that nice filter on, shall we? Let's try the balanced phase. All very nice, but more importantly, it's something that wouldn't easily do on other things. So let's go back into the oscillators, which are the sort of really unique aspect of this. And let's try and, I don't know, just find one of the more mad ones. Just putting it back in the low pass and taking that big crusher off. There's a bit too much going on for me at the minute. That's quite nice. Let's try and modulate that using the modulation envelope. So go to sine mode. Oscillator 1A, take a sine off. So all that's really good. Let's assign the cutoff to LFO1 then. And then let's put the rate in time with, let's say, a dance track. Let's say something like 128 BPM. And so it sounds really good, doesn't it? The effects are really nice. I really like these oscillators, and the flexibility of the filter is good as well. It's a shame just on that last one there that with the LFO I can't actually change the shape of the LFO to give it a bit more of a swing. You can put swing on the sequencer, and maybe I could do something with the assign modes on the animations to get it moving along with the sequencer. So, you know, not the end of the world, especially if you're doing it to a track, but you know, it's got quite a lot of features in quite a small space. So it sounds really nice, doesn't it? The only thing I've missed so far, I've only had it for a few days, was on that LFO there. It'd be nice to put a little bit of swing on the LFO, or change the wave shapes of the LFO so it can modulate again from a triangle to a square, or if we could just skew the triangle or something like that. That'd be nice, so we could have got a bit of swing on that. I can get swing on the step sequencer, so as I'm trying to do it in time with a track, for example, I could automate that in one of the animation lanes, but that's the only thing I've missed so far, and it sounds really good. The oscillators, I think, are really interesting, and it's a nice take on virtual analog. You know, you've got your Nord leads, you've got Access Virus, there's virtual analogs all over the place at the minute. I was playing with the System 8 and the Jupiter XM. It's a different beast to them. It's looking at it from a different point of view. Although the System 8 does have those sort of FM oscillators and things like that, it's not exactly the same as this. So quite a unique approach, and yeah, well worth checking out. So if you enjoyed that, maybe think about subscribing, or maybe take a look at my Patreon page. It all really helps with the channel. I don't get paid for doing this, it's a bit of fun, but it does cost me some money, so that would be really appreciated if you could do that. And I've also got like 6 hours worth of tutorials on there, how to program any synth. So what you've seen me doing on this, I sort of talk you through the principles of each of the separate modules on a standard analog synth, and show a few esoteric versions as well, with tutorials using the TAL noisemaker to guide you through how to make different types of tones and what everything does. So anyway, that's enough of my sales pitch. I hope that was of some use to somebody somewhere, because it's now going to take me quite a few hours to edit all this together. So I hope you did enjoy it, and I'll see you next time. There's room for 500 presets in here, and they've already pre-populated 300 of them with really decent sounding presets. I'm not generally a fan of presets. You tend to get things like flutes, trombones and clarinets, whereas on this you don't. They're really quite useful, which you heard on that intro track.